why fund managers can't beat the S&P 500? Because they're sheep. And sheep get slaughtered.
The numbers told the story, they always do.
Money never sleeps, pal.
Because all we care about is getting fucking rich. You connect points I don't even know to look for.
The most valuable commodity I know of is information.
Public's out there throwing darts at a board sport. I don't throw darts at a board. I bet on sure things.
Welcome, Karma Clan. Week 11 is in the rearview mirror. Welcome to the Sports Trading Desk podcast. I'm Brett Matthew with my co-host, Zach James. This was a week where the Sharp Super Contest consensus just got steamrolled. So top 5 consensus plays, 0-5. So if you could pick up one win, you're going to have outperformance this week. And right now we're sitting with 2 wins. So we're sitting 2-2 with the Bucs game currently going on right now. It was tied 14-14. It's halftime right now. Rams moved down the field. Poor scheming, poor play calling so far, currently losing by a field goal. But we're still in it. Still have some confidence here. But yeah, when you give up a field goal right before the half like that, very hard to cover a number when you kind of leave points or when you give up points on the field there when you shouldn't have. So sitting 2-2, already outperforming our benchmark by 2 games. Some of our leading competitors also got their faces ripped off this week pre-game, sitting at 1-4. So already outperforming them regardless of what happens in the Bucs game. So we're going to pick up alpha this week. We're going to compress or actually expand our lead even further over the benchmark on the season to date perspective. And so right now we're sitting flat on a units per basis, sitting at 2-2 right now. How did that perform, Zach?
Yeah, it looks like we're going to finish the week unless we make any more bets on this Rams game, which if we get an opportunity, the coaching for the Rams is far superior to the coaching of Tampa. So that in itself makes me wonder if trying to hedge out of the Bucs position makes some sense if we get another decent price at the Rams, if the Bucs can retake a lead. But beyond that, yeah, it looks like we're up about 2%, 2 units this week. So that brings us about 11% on the season if we don't make any more plays. So yeah, with 6 more weeks left, up 11% and aggressive, not bad.
Yeah, and again, some of that added tactical decision-making that actually boosted performance this week was, again, directly attributed to those live trades that we're making in the Discord channel for the premium subscribers. So you get those views as soon as we make the trade, we post it in the Discord, so you can follow right along. And one of the biggest positions that we really made live this week was soon as Joe Burrow went down, he busted his knee, looked like he's easily out for the year and possibly even then some next season, remains to be seen. But basically, as soon as he went down, the Bengals had the lead at the time. I think it was like 12-9. But once he went down, Finley's his backup. That's a massive downgrade. In fact, in the market right now, I think they're pricing it as a 7-point downgrade. And that's not to say that necessarily Joe Burrow is amazing. He obviously is good, but that's just how bad Finley is. So anyway, once we saw that happen, we immediately jumped on Washington, bet them aggressively. So we bet 2 units on the money line, which was still a relatively attractive price. I think at like minus 130. And then also threw another unit on the -3 once we started to see Washington actually start to move the ball right after that. And then we also bet the Chiefs when they were down by a field goal or right near the end of the game there, anticipating that Mahomes would drive right down the field. We got almost even money on that bet, and Mahomes did drive right down the field, score. So that was another easy cash in about 30 seconds. So performance looks pretty solid this week, especially since there was just so many in the market that just whiffed. And, these are the types of weeks where you can really separate yourselves. And I would say that, Zach, I'm relatively actually disappointed that we're sitting at 2-2 because we are actually so on target with so many games. It's just overweighted the wrong
games that nobody was on. And that's actually the biggest disappointment is, more so, and I know everyone wants to talk about like, oh, how much money are you making XYZ, but like, I more so actually want to be right. This is, to me, it's like a passion. Like I want to see the signals clearly on a given week. And I feel like this week, compared to the market, we had clarity that nobody had. I mean, we were on Denver. We were betting heavily. We were on Saints. We were on Panthers, even losing line value. 4 points of line value, we were on Panthers. So, like, we were on such games that the entire market was like, well, you can't choose that side.
And the Jets.
And the Jets. So just kind of, it's disappointing that in our, portfolios or what have you, we ended up picking a game or two that we were incorrect on with the games that we were like so spot on that the market was dead wrong on. So it's a little disappointing, but hey, we'll pick up a little ground on the overall season record. So
yep, absolutely.
Regardless of what happens in this Bucs game.
And hey, I mean, asset allocation, pick allocation, that is a skill in itself as well. And that was one part that we didn't do so well on this week, even though we saw the signal in so many games. And that's why in our portfolios this week, we had Panthers and Saints, which were, fades of the market for sure. Everybody was riding the Falcons. And if you listened to our podcast last week, you probably would take away that we were probably going to be balls deep on the Falcons. But that actually was based on the premise, if you listened, that Jameis Winston was going to be the Saints quarterback. And we were eager to fade him, anticipating or basically acknowledging that the market did not price Jameis Winston properly, that it should have been a much more massive downgrade than it actually was. And then, Sean Payton makes that change, switches it to Taysom Hill, and the market moves lower further. So actually downgrades the Saints further from Winston to Taysom Hill. And in fact, we completely disagreed with that opinion that Taysom Hill was an upgrade from Winston, not a downgrade. So that gave us, we thought, at least like 2.5 points of value.
And especially in the short term in a one-off game, because the Atlanta Falcons know Jameis Winston, okay? So what is the edge of Jameis Winston coming in and having, a week and a half to prepare for Jameis Winston? Whereas Taysom Hill, he's never started a game. So even if he sucks, even if he's Gardner Minshew, Gardner Minshew, no teams were able to prepare for when he first started last season, right? Because they don't know who the heck this guy even is. So Taysom Hill never starting as a quarterback, like, there's no advantage to be had, even if there's on the Saints side, there's some beginner's luck, as we see in all kinds of endeavors across the universe. Mm-hmm. Like Taysom Hill and the Saints had the edge, they had the advantage, yet the line went away from them, which made no sense. So,
and still great coaching, great scheming. And that Saints defense, which you've been high on and been talking about for several weeks in a row now, continues to get better and better, and that's correlated too with them getting healthier and healthier. And then another one of our picks was the Panthers. PJ Walker, XFL standout. Mike Davis has always been a nice compliment to Christian McCaffrey throughout the season. We've seen that. Obviously it's not even a downgrade; it's just different. But he's certainly serviceable. And the Lions are just so banged up on both the offense and defensive side, and you have miserable coaching. Now, not to say that we anticipated a 20-0 blowout, but this was a game where we thought that Panthers probably still should be favored, and we picked them -1.5 in the contests. And then, by the time we waited to allocate to the Panthers in this portfolio, because we had that flexibility to see, is Bridgewater going to be out or is he going to be in? And if he's going to be out, we know we're going to get even more value. That's exactly what happened. The market downgraded from Bridgewater to PJ Walker 4 points. So, an hour before kickoff, we got an extra 4 points that we didn't think that we were going to get. Slid that in. And this is like vintage us when it comes to making these sorts of picks that we kind of got away from for a while. And Zach, this was something that we were talking about in the last few weeks, trying to kind of reverse engineer and attribute, where do we think we can get stronger? Where do we think that, we had a particular pattern of making games that was successful in the past, and how can we make sure that we capitalize on our strengths and mitigate our weaknesses. And one of our strengths that really propelled our performance, especially last year, was betting on these quarterbacks that would especially come in on the first game, that the market would just hold their nose, say, I can't bet that. In fact, not can I only not bet that, but I'm actively going to fade it, and I'm going to actively fade it hard. We can usually spot the opportunities where there is an opportunity to exploit there. And we did that this week. And so, I'm really excited that we're, got back to that and we're able to capitalize on that. And then some picks that we didn't have in the Sportfolio, but again, that we did have in our contests, and they were right there as well. And then we talked about in our note in the Discord that in fact we were wobbling between, do we want to allocate to Saints or Cowboys +7? And we ultimately picked Saints, but Cowboys +7, that was another game that we really liked and that we had in our contests as well. They won outright. That was another game that we were talking about even on last week's podcast. That's just too many points. If you're betting Vikings -7, you're buying the Vikings at the very tippy top.
You got problems.
You got problems. You're not a sports bettor. This is not for
remember,
you.
And just fundamentally speaking, right? Forget everything we think we know about anything. The Vikings, we know, have very lackluster talent on the defensive front and the defensive secondary. They're playing Dallas, who has a strong running game when the offensive line is healthy, and amazing receiver group with a capable veteran quarterback. So laying 7 points against a team that had a bye to get their whole team just up to speed and not shitting the bed every 5 seconds. Just that in itself is, how in the hell could you even consider taking the Vikings? That's kind of where I want to go next year potentially, is finding ways to help our listeners understand who not to be on. So regardless if you decide to bet Cowboys or not, like the touts are going to say, I was on Cowboys, I was right, I'm amazing, suck my dick. Screw those people. Mm-hmm. Where people need to start is, what side should you avoid first? Which side should you avoid? And in this game, Vikings was never a consideration. You cannot consider that side. It's the top. Their defense is terrible. The situation's bad. Cowboys are being way undervalued in the spot. Vikings are way overvalued. Like, there's just so many variables and signals that just being able to understand, I should just avoid the Vikings, might just put you on the Cowboys or save your money by not putting it on the Vikings. So
exactly,
just something I want to throw out.
Right. And hey, saving your money sometimes can be just as good as actually making the money. And again, another game right along those same lines in which we actually, again, didn't just not avoid it, but actually did bet it, was you can't bet Falcons in this situation. Especially when everyone is pounding the number lower and lower and lower. It's the action is all one-sided. It was just, this was one of those things that reminded me, I don't think I actually ever articulated this when we were actually going through the process, but one of the things this reminded me of was earlier in the season was Saints-Lions, if you remember. And this was like with the Saints were missing like 7 different starters, and just the line was plummeting on the Saints. I think it was like Saints -6 closed, like Saints -3 reduced juice. And the Saints went out there, they started off slow, but ended up crushing the Lions.
Yeah.
even without those starters, because the Saints has a culture, the Saints has a coaching edge, they have a scheming edge, and especially if they're going to be playing inferior coaching staff, that's a massive edge. And another team like that you just couldn't bet this week, like, is Chargers minus double digits. Like, you can't do that. This is a team that is very poorly coached. Yeah, they have a star quarterback up and coming and makes flashy plays and they score a lot of points. They can't close games. They have bad coaching. That in itself means you cannot lay double digits. And then and that's regardless of who they're playing, regardless. So that's just a one-sided handicap. Then it gets complemented, though, by the fact that the Jets are one of these teams coming off a bye that has started to play well. We had talked about numerous times on the podcast. Can't bet the Jets, can't bet the Jets, can't bet the Jets. In fact, I think I said this exact thing on last week's podcast when we were previewing this week but now you started to see some competitive nature from the Jets, and that's what you needed to see in order to buy them.
And there's 3-4. So, since that game, they're 2-3 against the spread.
Mm-hmm.
So since you saw that, so you don't have to hit the bottom. That Bills game, let's say, was bottom. Was the beginning of them coming up from bottom.
Yeah.
That was the signal that, okay, they've crossed the threshold of complete trash.
Yeah.
And so
they're not just going to get the doors blown off them from start to finish.
But the line and the market is going to believe the narrative that, oh no, they're still week 3 Jets. But they're not. They've turned a corner.
Yeah.
So that's just something why you have to be ahead. You have to be predictive of where things are headed, not reactive of where things were.
Right. And I want to jump into next week, but just a little bit. So we've complimented ourselves on some of the great things we've done. I do want to briefly discuss where we went wrong. And, it hurt us across the board. Because again, when we're talking about asset allocation, pick allocation, we had Patriots, Eagles in the Sportfolio, in the Super Contest, in Circa, and in our second Circa pick. So it hurt us everywhere. And that's why in a week where we had so much signal and outperformed the market by so much, in the end, it's going to be not as great as it should have otherwise been because of that asset allocation. And Eagles, Patriots. So I don't know which one I'm more mad at. I feel like just quickly diagnosing Eagles, I'll say. Eagles, and I kind of wrote this in the note when we posted the plays on Sunday morning. And again, this is one of the things, we've talked about building out our 10 commandments of sports betting. And, that's one thing that I want to continue for us to build out over the course of the summer, et cetera, and almost have a checklist that we must go through before finalizing a pick. And one of those things is, are you anticipating a bottom in a team? Are you trying to catch a falling knife? Like we were just talking about the Jets, right? We saw the Jets cover. We saw the Jets start to materially change, going from not competitive at all to actually, hey, now they're being competitive, and you're going to get a shit ton of points with them every time. So it makes it even more attractive. Eagles, like I mentioned on last week's podcast as well, is the Eagles just keep playing bad. They keep not covering, and the market is not adjusting price-wise. And this was a game that we tried to pick the bottom on the Eagles again and lost again, and weren't even being really compensated for it that much. In all honesty, all right, like the Browns are wishy-washy. The Eagles are wishy-washy. I understand the Browns had no Myles Garrett. The Browns have more talent than the Eagles. And, we need to stop believing that the Eagles are also well coached.
I think they're terribly coached.
Yeah, well, yeah, I think that needs to directly go into our handicap more explicitly with the Eagles, is that they're not well coached.
In all honesty,
because you can make the argument the Browns actually have coaching edge.
Yeah, I think the Browns. If you look at the Browns' points for and against. I mean, the Browns are a 3-4 win team, but they have 7 wins because of coaching. Mm-hmm. Whereas the Eagles are the opposite. Eagles have talent. They just coaching and quarterback is not right. And I think you could talk for days about Wentz, but I think coaching deserves some of that blame too. Is he's not, the word on the street is Doug Peterson does not put his players in positions to succeed. He puts his scheme and tries to fit it to his players. And that's problematic because then you're rigid and you won't adjust. You won't have the humility to go, well, Carson can't read this play the way I need him to read it. So I got to, just like Jared Goff and Sean McVay. Sean McVay is Jared Goff's savior. Jared Goff would be on the scrap heap of third-string quarterbacks if it wasn't for Sean McVay. That's how
he'd probably be out of the league.
100%. He literally would be like the Jamarcus Russell of the 2020s or whatever. It's just like Ryan Leaf. He is that bad as far as diagnosing and understanding what to do with the football when he needs someone to literally point and say, this is what you need to do. Mm-hmm. And McVay can do that, like a remote control in an Xbox game. So with Peterson, like if Wentz is playing that bad, we've seen Wentz's talent in the past. I mean, it's got to be Peterson. I mean, it's a combination of both.
Yeah, but I mean, Wentz
but my point,
making.
Yeah, for sure. But my main point is this.
I mean, because the pick six was decisive.
Yeah, that was all Wentz. But the narrative is, it's all Wentz. I think that's a misnomer. It's partially Wentz, it's partially Doug Peterson. And if you neglect the Doug Peterson part, then you're neglecting the whole of the issue.
Agree. And also, I think Wentz is definitely, you give him the right, he's not a one-man wrecking crew. Like, he can't obviously, if things are falling apart around him, like if you put Wentz on the Bears, he's not any better, No. But if you put Wentz on
the Rams,
on the Cowboys, I think. So like, still a faulty-ish offensive line, not the greatest coaching, but, serviceable talent, great wide receiving talent at least. And, I think Wentz performs much better on the Cowboys. And that's why if you're a savvy GM, I would, you're the right team, like the Colts, long-term Colts, Carson Wentz on the Colts. I feel like they got a great offensive line, a great culture, great coaching, building out talent from, it's a very young team. That's a great spot for Carson Wentz, I think, long-term. And I think he could really turn around his career. But anyway, I'm looking at the Eagles schedule: Seahawks, Packers, Saints, Cardinals, Cowboys, Washington. I don't know where they win another game, maybe one more. I think you've been pounding the table on Giants going to win the division. I mean, I think it's going to come down to, Giants can't win the division.
Yeah. I honestly think, I think all three teams have a better shot than the Eagles to win the division based on the schedule.
And I don't know where you can bet the Eagles again. Again, like, I don't want to say, like when we listen back on this podcast next summer and we try to like isolate, like, oh, you reacted here is, I don't think you can bet the Eagles here moving forward until you see not a shit show. Because pretty much every Eagles game is a shit show.
Yeah, yeah. Ever since the second half of the Redskins game.
So the
first game.
Yeah. And I think, and I don't even, we'll count back over the course in the offseason, but we've bet the Eagles way too many times this year. And they're a core deciding factor in some of our relative underperformance. You say, hey guys, you can't pick the Eagles, and we're up another 2 games at least.
Yeah.
And let's just move on now to Patriots, another team where, in our in midweek, I was lamenting how off I personally have been on the Patriots, and how there was a few times when you wanted to bet them that I didn't want to, and then they covered, and then a few times when we both wanted them and then they don't cover. And I think now, I mean, I personally, again, have now been wrong on the Patriots 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks in a row. So Niners lost. Bills, you wanted them. I didn't. They covered. So relative loss, like a misalignment on the theme of the team. Going to the Jets. We picked the Patriots. We did lean Jets by the end of it, but I'll count that as a loss. Ravens, loss. And then this week, Texans, loss. So like, just because, like we've talked about, there's teams we're super hot on. I've been really good with Washington, really good with Panthers. We've both been good with Panthers. You've been really good with Bucks. Like, there's other teams out there that we got a really strong read on, and like, we're not losing when we pick them or pick against them at all. And there's other teams we keep going to the well on, and we just keep losing. Eagles and Patriots being one of them, and that's why this is like a perfect week of why they are single-handedly weighing on performance, because that is a microcosm of the season writ large. And so these are two teams I feel like we just have to try to avoid, just because we're just not seeing the signal, I think. I
agree.
All righty. So let's move on. Let's check the score real fast. What's going on in Bucks?
It's a tight game. Rams look like they're about to score something, probably a touchdown.
Okay, so let's move on to next week. Let's start with Thanksgiving.
So top of the order, Texans at Lions. So I'll go ahead and give this out because I already bet it and put it in the Thanksgiving Sportfolio. Texans -1, bought at -120 unit already. Now the line's at -3. So real quick, part of the handicap of this game is I don't want to present it as an overreaction to last week, but we're week 10 and the Lions scored 0 points and gave up tons of points and should have given up more points to a first-time quarterback from the XFL. I mean, last week was bottom for Detroit, but I don't know if they have the means in 3 days to come out of bottom this quickly. And on such a short notice, with the continuation of injuries on offense, no Golladay, no Amendola, looks like no Swift, I just don't see how the Lions is even in consideration to be played while Deshaun Watson is healthy and being the leader of the entire Texans organization, because the owners have gone to Deshaun Watson and said, who do you want to be coach? Who do you want to be GM? So they're handing the keys of the entire organization over to him, which is empowering, this is literally, he is the most important person in a building in the Texans organization. No other, how many NFL players have that? Even Tom Brady has to kind of appease Bruce Arians and rub his elbow, pat his fat little belly. You know what I'm saying? Even Tom's got to be a little all right, okay, Bruce.
For sure.
Everyone now knows in the Texan organization, this is whatever Watson does or wants, he's the man, we follow his lead. And based on rewatching the tape, Watson had a 15-yard run where he ran over a linebacker to get into the end zone. And head on, doing a hitting drill. So if Watson is playing that kind of Michael Jordan, just don't give any craps, just going to try to put it all out there. I don't know. To me, it's just between those two sides of the game. There's no way you could take Lions, I think, in this spot, especially at only a field goal.
It's definitely difficult. This is one of those games that it seems so obvious that makes me a little suspicious. The Lions just have so many injuries, again, are very poorly coached. It is Thanksgiving. They are at home and they are getting a field goal. Texans still are poorly coached, even if Watson is kind of trying to unilaterally take the reins. So if you do think there is this fundamental thematic shift kind of going on, then the Texans definitely is the play. I feel like I don't feel strongly about it. I think, you bet it at -1. That's probably a good spot to take the Texans for sure. But prior to last week's game, again, Texans only beat the Jags and have lost every other game. Again, they did look good versus the Patriots, and they have had a very tough schedule. So,
well, and to give their defense some credit, Watt had 4 passes batted down. So, the best player on the defense and the best player on the offense is, are coming to play and they want to win. These guys have a lot of pride. They have a lot of talent. So just from a talent standpoint, Stafford's got a torn ligament in his throwing hand. So I don't know, there's just so much working against Detroit, and Houston is peaking at a time. I love bad teams early that find their stride late and are peaking. Those are the type of teams that can win 4 games in a row. And they still finish with 5 wins on the season, but the entire market had already said, I can't bet the Texans. And so for the last 5 weeks of the season, you just missed out on all that opportunity. That's kind of what this Texans, at least this game in particular, feels like. And again, especially on short rest. If this was a Sunday game, I think I might be more hesitant like you of it seems so obvious. But 3 days. I don't know how you turn around. Our defense is terrible, our coaching is terrible, and our offense has cluster injuries. We have 3 days to turn any of it around to have a shot, or all of it around to play well and really have a good chance to win. I just don't know how that happens. Seems like a tall order to expect it to happen, personally.
Right. No, yeah, and I definitely strongly lean Texans, no doubt. So what's next?
Washington at Cowboys. Cowboys -3 at home, both coming off a win, division game. Winner of this game will be in first place of the division, presumably.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd say I'll probably have to lean Washington plus the field goal here. Just, I think, one of the reasons why we liked Cowboys this week plus a touchdown was just, the Dallas' defense is getting healthier and their offensive line is getting somewhat healthier, but, a lot of the, Zach Martin was back, so that was meaningful. Dalton is back, so you actually have an NFL starting quarterback. So those are all meaningful. But, division game, I feel like they're comparable when it comes to when you take the teams collectively as from a talent, coaching, personnel perspective. So yeah, I'm going to lean Washington plus the field goal here and think they can definitely win the game outright. I guess my only concern would be is if the Cowboys can pick up a little momentum here, and if they do start to run Tony Pollard more, and complement him more so with Zeke Elliott, because I think he's kind of a talent that they should be leveraging more often than they do.
Yeah, I'm split on this game because so both teams are obviously on a short week. Cowboys are coming off that bye, so I wonder if they're going to be a little more consistent into this next game after they played on Sunday. And Cowboys are healthier. I don't know. Based on what you told me, sounds like if Joe Burrow never gets hurt, Burrow was doing whatever he wanted to the Redskins defense. So obviously Andy Dalton is not Joe Burrow, but that to me is a little concerning. So I think I would lean Cowboys to win this game straight up and see if you can get Redskins on a hedge or something. And Alex Smith still is, I think they only had 9 points in the first half, 0 points in the first half versus the Lions the week before. So this offense is not dynamic. It's still not good. Terry McLaurin's really, really good. And their running backs are somewhat decent at times. Alex Smith is a game manager. So it's okay, but an okay offense playing against the Cowboys defense, I just don't see where the edge is for the Skins offense. Mm-hmm. So it's really going to come down to if the Cowboys can put up points.
Yeah, no, that's a really good observation, actually. And again, calling out my own observation and bringing it to my attention because, the Washington final score 20-9 this week for Cincinnati, super misleading because Cincinnati was Joe Burrow and the team were committing turnovers, bonehead mistakes, but they were moving the ball kind of up and down the field. And then you bring in Finley, and at the time that Burrow got hurt, they were way backed up into their own side of the field. So, then you put Finley in, can't do anything, gives Washington a short field. They drive right down and score, kind of feeding on the momentum of kind of like a bleeding opponent. And Finley just basically couldn't do anything and continued to kind of give Washington relatively short fields and put them in a really good position. But even still, only scored 20 points on the Bengals defense. It's one of the worst in the NFL. Really good points there. Maybe I don't lean Washington. I'm not sure.
Honestly, you're getting the +3. It could be a field goal type game. I feel like a lot more has to go right for Washington to win this game than has to go right for Dallas, as long as Dallas doesn't just like shit the bed, but they've already had those games, like kind of like the Jets. Like we've now seen the signal from the Cowboys that like the first 8 weeks of just being like tragically terrible, like are mostly over. Like they're still not going to be great in spots, but like every game, them just like shitting the bed, being ridiculously bad, is just like not going to happen anymore. So they've turned a corner in that respect. So now it's a new Cowboys team. So it's not the Cowboys of week 3 or week 5. It's the Cowboys of last week, more or less. Mm-hmm. So
that's another good point too. And this is the time of the season when teams can take on newer identities and leave behind what the betting market kind of wants to sink their teeth into and like be very reluctant to let go of. Mm-hmm. And that's something that you don't want to do because it was around this time, that the Falcons switched, flipped a switch, the Jets flipped a switch, and other teams last year. Whereas if you just sunk your teeth into that first half team, this team sucks, I'm going to keep betting against them and keep fading their good performances because they're going to revert back to the mean of being, shitty like they were the first half. You're just going to keep losing money. I think you make a good point that I think the pure shitty, discombobulated, no chance of competing Cowboys is probably in the rearview mirror. And this is probably as good as any spot to kind of at least maintain that momentum versus a team like Washington.
That's a good point with the momentum of that win on a Sunday playing on a Thursday. There's no time to really even get in your own way, or it's kind of like, it's not saying what happened Sunday is going to happen Thursday, but there's a level of like, you're not going to go from that to like scoring 0 and having 6 turnovers. Like it's just like, it's almost like you're more likely to have a continuation of the kind of momentum and like rhythm and play calling and chemistry. Whereas Skins, like we said, like they had 9 points at the half, like only had 20 points on the game after, Burrow went out. And something I want to point out real quick, we'll move on, is, Dallas is at home and their home crowds have like 50%, 60% capacity. So like it's going to be the biggest game of the year for these teams, essentially, right? Yeah. And it's a revenge game. So these teams have already played each other. Cowboys had a terrible game, but that's when Andy Dalton got knocked out of the game by Bostic, which Dalton was pretty pissed about that he didn't get fined more. So I'm sure there's a little bit of like, more than just like we lost revenge, like kind of like screw those guys revenge. So like you're going to get Cowboys fired up and angry and a team like the Cowboys, you want to be fired up because they're kind of like a peripheral team, like passive team. So like you want their intensity to be as intense to be able to match what Washington kind of naturally already brings. Right. And so that should favor the Cowboys. So I don't know, there's just a lot of signals to me that really it's probably Cowboys are off.
No, I agree with you. All right. So what's next? Ravens, Steelers. Ravens sitting at 4.5 going into Pittsburgh on Thanksgiving. What are your thoughts?
And this line was 2.5. Now it's down up to 4.5 because of Baltimore's COVID situation. Apparently, there's some players that could miss this game now too. So I mean, obviously, like depending who and how many, I mean that's kind of going to dictate where you should go. Obviously, Baltimore played better than the final score the last time these teams played. But I mean, Pittsburgh's rolling. I mean, what's the why get in front of the freight train? Again, we are the king of fading Ravens, which is why I'm mad we didn't fade them last week, laying 6.5 points. Because we don't buy Lamar Jackson. We don't buy this offense. And they've proven it plenty, even just this season, as to why you shouldn't buy them. So
the other thing that we've talked about that is continuing to come true is, I mean, this team's either they're going to cover or they're just going to lose outright. And they just keep losing outright.
That's a good point.
And I think that's actually what we talked about on last week's podcast is if you like the Ravens, you bet Ravens -6. If you like Titans, just bet Titans money line.
Yeah,
and that was exactly our advice last week. So if you liked +6, hopefully you ditch the +6 and you just bet Titans money line.
Made really good money.
Yeah. So I don't feel strongly about this game. I mean, the market is slowly but surely getting off the Ravens. And I mean, the Steelers, I mean, even like what you were talking about when they played earlier this season and you liked the Steelers, was these teams play each other close, whether they're both good or bad or, and the Steelers have not, like, they end up beating some teams this rather decisively, but don't necessarily look good doing it.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's definitely opportunity for this to be a close game. Obviously, you do got to keep.
That's fair.
You have to appreciate who on the Ravens is going to be out. But I mean, it's not like the Steelers are steamrolling teams, and it's like, man, it's hard to get in front of this team. I could definitely get in front of the Steelers. I could definitely bet against the Steelers. I'm not afraid to bet against the Steelers. Just needs to be the right spot, and I don't think, I wouldn't bet the Steelers here.
Yeah, no, I mean, like you said, these teams, no matter what the situation is, tends to be a 3 to 4 point type final. Just because they're so competitive and they play similar styles. And to your point, Steelers, they're not really winning by margin, though they're covering a lot of spreads. So they're covering spreads because the market has undervalued the Steelers all season. But they're not covering the spreads because they're dominating games. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like, they're not winning 20 points every game, like dominating like last year's like Ravens team. They're really just kind of squeaking by, but the spread was already short because the market's been undervaluing the Steelers from the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
all right. Raiders, Falcons, Raiders -3 on the road. Yikes.
Yeah, yikes. Interesting.
That is a crazy price. That's the first time I'm seeing that.
I don't even know what to think about this game. I don't know if I can. Oh, man.
I mean, the thing that hurt the Falcons so much was the Saints' defensive line getting insane pressure on Matt Ryan, sacking him like 7-8 times. Raiders aren't going to be able to do that.
No, Raiders cannot do that.
And I think the Raiders coming off like this hot game versus the Chiefs, even in a loss, are probably feeling pretty good about themselves. I mean, it was a very impressive performance. In fact, even all on Twitter and in the media, I mean, people are giving the Raiders props. I mean, we give the Raiders props for sure. I mean, we've liked the Raiders kind of like over the course of the season. I mean, I predicted that, in our preseason article, they're going to have 10 wins. So, they're meeting expectations. Did put in a great performance in that loss versus the Chiefs. Market might be getting ahead of itself a little bit here, though. -3 on the road.
Yeah, that's actually, you make a lot of good points. And remember, the market was deep throating the Falcons last week man, they're gonna have a hard time stomaching taking the Falcons again versus the Raiders, who should have beat the world champion Chiefs for the second time this year, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So like the narratives are going to hold a lot of people away from the Falcons, but you're getting 3 points. I mean, Falcons can lose, you can still win this bet. So like, I don't hate it. I think, and Falcons, like you said, Matt Ryan's not going to get sacked 8 times. So the entire game script from last week you have to throw out. That game script's not going to happen. It's more likely to be like the Chiefs Raiders than it is Falcons Saints.
Yeah. No, I really like this Falcons +3. That's really attractive. Cardinals Patriots, New England +2.5.
Well, like we said, our pulse on the Patriots has been pretty putrid.
Yeah.
So I don't have much on this game.
Yours has been better than mine.
Yeah, slightly. But, I mean, I don't buy the Cardinals. Like, I bought the Cardinals at the beginning of the season that they could make the playoffs, but I don't buy them as, like, a top 5 team in the NFL. So, like, this is a tough line. And the Cardinals don't have a very good defense. I could see this going either way. I'd probably lean the points.
Yeah, the points just aren't going to do too much for you. +2.5.
It might.
Yeah, it's just how bad is the Patriots defense? It's just like you just don't know. Let's move on. Maybe it's something we do pick. Maybe we think about it more, but I don't have much. Yeah, I'm still on tilt for the Patriots. Giants -6 now on the road at the Bengals. So I think this was pick, then went to -4 on the Burrow news. Now has skyrocketed to -6.
Yeah, so they're saying 6 points, lost.
They're
Burrow's
begging
injury.
for Bengals money.
Which makes sense. It's hard to lay points with the Giants regardless of the situation.
Yeah.
The Giants. So I've been on Giants all season. In fact, before
they're one of the teams that we've had a really good read on.
Yes, before Dak went down with injury, I posted on Twitter that Giants were going to win the division. When they were in last place after the injury and they lost to the Bucks, I said they're going to win the division. So I can't, if I can say it when they have 0 wins on the season and 1 win on the season, they're going to win this game. The question is by how much? And it's just
I don't think it's going to be by 6.
Yeah, it's just do they win by margin? They don't so far. They did beat the Eagles.
It might just barely be by a touchdown. And you get really pissed. I remember when Finley played for the Bengals last year, I think we bet him once. And maybe it was versus the Steelers or something like that. And they put in this kind of admirable performance. I think it was super low scoring, but the Steelers ended up covering the big number, kind of fluky pick 6 or something like that. I think this game is probably going to be closer than the line is assuming, and then because of massive Bengals issues, the Giants maybe cover, but the Giants aren't like the Steelers were last year, because the Giants also do make bonehead mistakes. So you can't bet the Giants at minus a touchdown.
Yeah, I think this is a layoff on both, because on the other side, it's kind of like picking bottom. We don't know if this is bottom or not for the Bengals, and I would assume it probably is, because the whole team bought into Burrow. Now he's gone. The season's over. I'm not sure how many of them like their head coach. This could be a really flat spot just from a disappointment level of the season's over, but I got to play 6 more weeks. All right, let me just get my paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
So whereas Giants aren't going to win it. I think Giants, the longer the season goes and Giants have a chance to make the playoffs, I think the Giants are just going to get better.
Yeah. This is a game, you probably just want to avoid. But, this is what we were talking about earlier. You cannot be betting the Giants, minus almost a touchdown on the road. They're not that reliable of a team. The game script has to go according to plan in every dimension, pretty much, for the Giants to cover that type of number on the road. In the Bengals, I mean, I could see Finley just playing a game manager role. If Finley can make no mistakes, I can see how the Bengals could even squeak out a win if Danny Dimes is going to play like a bonehead.
Yeah, he's been playing pretty consistently better as the season's progressed. So I don't, Bengals don't have that kind of defense to really take advantage, I don't think. So, I mean, I would probably do a tease with the Giants and or money line it or something. So it's probably the play I'd lean.
Probably. Browns are minus a touchdown, minus 6.5 at Jags.
Browns are minus a touchdown. Oh, I see. You're right. Interesting. Who's quarterback for the Jags?
I think it's going to be Minshew.
Not going to lie. If it's Minshew, I think you got to consider taking the Jags.
No, I think I like the Jags.
Well, the only thing is Jags are terrible against the run. And we know what the Browns want to do. I'm not saying it's strength versus weakness, but it is strength versus weakness.
Yeah. I don't know. Let's move on.
Whereas at least like when they played the Eagles, you knew the Eagles could like get some stops on the run game for a half, keep it close in that regard. Whereas the Jags, like, man, if the Browns get up early, yeah, it's probably going to be a long day for the Jags.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, again, the Jags have hung in there in some games. I mean, they even hung in for a half with the Steelers. Seems like a lot of points. I mean, again, the Browns aren't really a team you want to be betting minus a touchdown on the road either.
Oh, no. Well, but remember, it is the Jags. I mean, Jags have not been competitive really down the stretch in games for months.
Yeah.
I'm just like, it's really to me like, can you back the Jags yet? Like, have we seen anything to back them? Like, I don't think so. I think the Jags are the Jets of week 4.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. Titans +4 at Colts.
+4. Damn, that's a lot. That's a lot of points.
It does seem like a lot.
That's a lot of points. Yeah, I mean,
it seems like the Colts are actually getting more of the benefit of the doubt after beating the Packers than the Titans are after beating the Ravens.
That's it. That's true. And obviously that Colts game in the end could have really gone either way. If you take away that fumble, I mean, Green Bay played.
Yeah, but I mean the Packers, I mean, again, like it is vintage Rodgers, but like getting set up for that late score after that massive pass interference, like, I mean, Colts kind of put themselves in bad positions. I mean, they made the big comeback, and we were on Colts. That was one team. Well, it was one game actually, another game that we, were totally off market on. Leaned Colts. We had the Colts in one of our contests as well. Again, we weren't super excited about that one because in the end, given all the back and forth, it really could have gone either way. So it wasn't super sharp, but it was sharp in the sense that everybody was betting the Packers. Everyone we listened to on podcasts and, sharp bettors and a lot of bettors we respect, like Packers. I know Corey liked Packers +3, and so he got out alive.
And why I'm impressed that we avoided it is because we keyed it in on what you're talking about. Not just like, oh, everyone's on the Packers. We keyed in on why. And we said, is the why strong enough for this many sharp people to be on it? And we said, well, no, we don't think it's strong enough. So it gave us conviction to fade that side and go with the Colts at 1.5, whatever it was. Because we could understand why the market and even the sharp market was buying into the Packers, but because of the volume of that narrative, that was unequal weight. Like, it's one thing if like 50% of sharps are on Green Bay, 50% are on Colts. Like, it's split, blah, blah, blah. But when like it's consensus, like, does it add up?
Well, and a lot of the rationale that I was hearing from a lot of sharp bettors was, the look-ahead line had the Packers -2. And after 1 week, it's going to flip to Colts -3, a 5-point move. That's not justified. And I agree it's not justified. The thing is the -2 was wrong. Like, that's a stupid starting point. That was wrong.
That's a good point.
It's not that there was a 5-point change in the substance of the Colts and the Packers from week 10 to week 11. And that's what everyone was getting so wrapped up. Was there 5 points worth of change? No. Well, so I'm going to bet the Packers. No. Again, you've completely conflated two distinct anomalies. One is the substance of these teams. The other is the wrong look-ahead line.
It's fair.
You know, and like, it's just, when I was seeing that was the people's, so many sharp bettors' rationale for, because I agree with them. Was there a 5-point swing in the team's underlying drivers of performance from week 10 to week 11? Of course not. Well, then you got to bet the Packers. No, I don't. Because I disagree with that look-ahead line. That was just wrong. That actually had the underlying drivers of these two teams wrong. Because, I mean, at minimum, I think, and what it really came down to is this game should have been pick.
Yeah, you're right.
You know? And maybe Colts modestly favored, you know? So in this game, though, I mean, division game, I mean, I know the Colts Titans, the Titans are one deep ball drop by A.J. Brown away from that game's complexion probably looking a lot different on that Thursday night game. So, I mean, I'm definitely probably lean Titans +4 here.
Yeah, I mean,
it seems like at least, at minimum, 1 point too much.
Yeah, I think it should be 3. And it is strange that Colts are getting this much love. It must be because of that Thursday game and the Packers game for the Colts.
Yeah, but even still, I mean,
it's a revenge game. I mean, Titans can win this game. Like, it's very,
Titans can absolutely win this game.
Yeah, I don't know how you take the -4 unless there's, are Titans getting any injured guys back, like Adoree Jackson?
Yeah, I mean, it's something we'll have to look into, because I feel like I'm missing something here, because I feel like this should be an easy flat 3. At best. All right, Chargers +5.5 at Bills.
Oof. Well, Bills are coming off extra rest and preparation after that Cardinals debacle. I hate 5.5s. They're such dead spots. Like, it's such a, look how many points you're getting, but we're not going to give you the 6.
Yeah.
Which makes me think the over is probably the play. That's 54 though. That's a lot of points. Yeah, it's rough. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to say. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I don't really have a good pulse on the Chargers. I feel like I have a good pulse on the Bills, but I haven't seen enough of the Chargers post week 3 to really feel confident that I can diagnose this team well. So going all across the country again, they laid an egg versus the Dolphins. Like, I don't know how to back Chargers in a spot. If you're not even getting 6, I can't do it.
I don't think there's any edge here. I think it's 5.5 because they're just trying to squeeze out as many points as possible to try to make it look somewhat competitive. And the fact that it's probably going to come down to the last play or something like that. And it's going to be Chargers down, 6, trying to get the touchdown from the 30-yard line. So it's like, not like a slam dunk or even a 50-50 chance maybe per se, but like they have the chance to win it and they're not going to win it. And the Bills probably end up winning by 6 and covering, and it looks good. But it really was coin flippy. And I think, like we've talked about a lot with Chargers games, is I feel like probably if you bet the Chargers in this game, you're going to feel justified and that was the right side. And if you bet Bills, you're going to feel justified that it was the right side, which means there is no edge. So I'm happy to move on from this one.
Yeah, I definitely think, though, Bills should win this game. So, yeah, another tease probably feel really good about.
Yeah, I think the Bills probably should win this, but I think, again, Chargers probably keep it, like, superficially close. Saints -6 at Broncos. Wow, that's a lot. That's another lot of points. I don't know.
Definitely don't like this as much as I like the Saints versus the Falcons.
No. I mean, going into the elements at Denver is always something that you need to handicap seriously.
Well, and, like I said, so part of the reason we were on the Saints versus the Falcons was literally because of Taysom Hill in that game. We have to rewatch the tape, but from some things I heard is like he was throwing some ducks, like didn't have really good timing. Using Kamara in the passing game, he had 1 catch. So like the entire Saints offense is different than it was with Drew Brees. So
Yeah.
that's not a long-term upgrade. I mean, Drew Brees is one of the top 5 QBs maybe of all time. Like just from a like capability standpoint, obviously his arm's not as strong as it used to be, whatever. But like, I mean, it's Drew Brees. Like it's like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady. Who's next? Like Big Ben, Drew Brees, like that. You know what I'm saying? So I don't feel confident that Taysom Hill is going to like score 27 points in this game again.
No, probably going to be much harder. And I think, I watched that game pretty closely. And, he floated some up that because the Falcons secondary is, doesn't have their shit together, couldn't necessarily capitalize on it. And because the Saints have good wide receivers, they were able to navigate those balls much better than Atlanta was. The Broncos have a much better secondary with Justin Simmons, AJ Boye, so they have players out there, and then too in the elements as well. Not going to be throwing these bombs in the dome.
And now a week of tape.
But that's also a good point. A full game worth of tape to really see what the Saints, because that was the other thing, is you didn't necessarily know what you're really going to get out of the Saints with the Falcons going into that game. And that was one of the reasons too why we really liked that edge with the Saints last week. Now the Saints have to win by obviously the Saints are better coached, better culture, all the same things that we've talked about. And I don't think that this is a great game that the Saints would necessarily lose, but I think I love the under in this game. It's 44 right now. Well, I think the Saints are just going to run it, do a lot of kind of like gimmicky type plays. But in these elements, like
the gimmicks aren't as effective.
And Sean Payton is going to, I'm sure, going to tell Taysom Hill no more throwing these bombs downfield because it's going to hang even more in the air in Denver. And they have capable secondary to go out there and actually pick those off. And then also fumbling. Taysom Hill has had troubles fumbling as well in the past. And again, introduce the elements in just all of the probability of those types of vulnerabilities, getting exacerbated is much more likely.
Well, and pending what happens with this Bucs game, hear me out real quick. Bucs aren't looking too good in the second half. They probably, if they lose, I wouldn't be shocked at this point. The Saints don't need this game. I don't know how to say it another way. Saints should just not even play this game. And I said this earlier in the season about other teams in certain spots. There are certain spots with good teams, like the Steelers probably in week 12 after they play the Ravens. They just take the week off. It just doesn't matter. Obviously they're competing with the Chiefs. But for the Saints to get the number 1 seed overall, who are they competing with? They have the tiebreaker over the Bucs. That's not going to come into play. So, I mean, they're in great position. They're playing an AFC team. Like, it's more important that you, like, don't get Kamara and Michael Thomas hurt and keep your defense healthy and, like, prep for the next big game. Like, it's way more important. So
that's the other thing is Kamara was really beat up in this game. And, in fact, Taysom Hill only targeted him once in the game from a passing perspective. And they were using Murray a lot more in the second half. So that's something also worth monitoring. I mean, again, the Broncos, they've put in some really questionable performances as well this year. So it's like, when it comes to just fundamental, like which team is better, obviously the Saints is just better in almost every single way. But there's a lot of points on the road in a tough environment. I mean,
actually, the way I think Saints win and cover this game is the Saints defense has come far from the beginning of the season and just dominates the line of scrimmage. Like, if that happens, then Saints will probably cover. But if Denver can produce any kind of offense, I think Denver has a shot to win this game straight up and should cover this line. So it's kind of where you think that Saints defense is going to land, to me, is where you should lean your bet.
Mm-hmm. All right, what do we got next? There's a lot of games off the board.
Well, we got Panthers Vikings. Panthers are +4 on some books.
I'm not sure if you want to go back to the well with PJ
Is Bridgewater playing? Or is Bridgewater out again? I think he'll probably play.
It's possible. I'm sure. I mean, is Bridgewater their quarterback of the future? I mean, if so,
I think he is for now. I don't think there's
if that is the case, like why
next year.
Like
why
he
risk
doesn't
him?
have yeah.
I mean, to be fair, if Panthers beat the Vikings, there's a path Panthers can make the playoffs still with a healthy Christian McCaffrey. It's a low chance, but
Says Bridgewater set to return versus Vikings. If that's the case, I probably do like Panthers.
Yeah.
It's another team that we've been really right on a lot.
The only thing I will say,
the Vikings secondary finally got exposed by the Cowboys.
Yeah. And
the Panthers are definitely capable, especially with Bridgewater, of exposing the secondary.
Yeah, 100%. With Bridgewater, and talk about the revenge of revenge games. Minnesota was his team until his injury. So, that's kind of like a big emotional spot for him. The only thing I would say on the flip side is, Vikings obviously coming off that loss, Panthers coming off that win. Vikings run the ball really well. Panthers do not stop the run if it's run really well. So you're basically predicting that to me, the over would be the play then, because you're probably going to get Vikings scoring 24 to 31 points, and then you need Panthers to keep up. So that's my caveat if you go on Panthers.
Ooh, we finally got a Jared Goff, that vintage Jared Goff interception.
Oh, nice. That's 2. Is he going to hand the Bucs a tie? Because the Bucs are still down 7. So
yeah,
Brady
at midfield. What is going on? Ever since we started the podcast, I was watching it, and he looked certainly fine. And ever since we started talking,
well, like we said, I think from what we talked about, the play calling and the coaching on the Bucs, I will finally admit, is really bad. It's bad. It's I think the Bucs' success, most of it, is purely based on talent and Tom Brady, and has little to do with coaching or schematics.
Mm-hmm.
So, this team's going to be a tough play down the stretch because it's like, which side of it do you buy or do you fade? Do you fade the bad coaching or do you buy the talent? Like, which is going to come to play? So
yeah, well, I think this is the perfect time in the game too, where they're gonna let maybe Brady, if he has the capacity to dictate what goes next. You know,
be the scheme and the QB.
Yeah, exactly. Like, all right, Tom, you just do your thing. This is your time. So we'll see if he can do that. I gotta give credit to the Rams defense though. I mean, it's kind of been one of these things where it's like, oh man, going into the season thought they were going to be terrible. A lot of like no names on there. Gave up a lot of talent in the off season. And it's just like, obviously you have Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey, but it's like, oh, but that's it. And a lot of these Brockers and Johnson and the secondary, and they've all really come to play, being really well coached. And, people are saying, oh, well, the Rams, they've only played the NFC East, so maybe, they're kind of inflated. But I mean, they come to play pretty much week in, week out. It's definitely a top 10 defense.
Yeah, for sure. And the only game they really got blown out in was that Miami game where it was all Goff. The defense actually played really well.
Yeah. And again, part of our handicap for this Bucs game was that it was going to be a Goff implosion that would put the Bucs in position to win this game and cover. And I mean, maybe it's a little bit more difficult than we thought it would be, but it looks like it's still alive.
It looks like if the Bucs somehow would pull off this cover, which seems like they don't even deserve, it would be because of Jared Goff.
Yeah. So that part of the handicap would definitely be right. Looks like the Bucs just got a first down. It's going to be inside the red zone. So, here we go.
Everyone listening already knows the result.
Yeah. Cool.
So
let's talk about the Rams. Do you have a line on Niners Rams or no?
Niners Rams?
Yeah, next week.
Oh, we have 2 more games for this week. Oh, for next week. Oh, I see. Yeah. Sorry, no, that line's not up. No, I don't see that one.
What about Bears Packers?
So Bears Packers is Bears plus 8.5. Man, the market said they suck.
Yeah. Well, it looks like Nagy is also non-committal to either Foles or Trubisky. So that means it could be Tyler Bray.
I think I don't know.
No, Tyler Bray is not the type of quarterback who, we've seen. We were just talking on this podcast, buying these quarterbacks that come in and play a game or two.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not buying Tyler Bray.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I think Mitch Trubisky might actually be a slight upgrade in the spot if he plays.
At this point in time, it's like the Bears are just one of those teams, like you need a fresh face every 3 or 4 games.
Yeah. Yep.
And that's probably the case here. Touchdown Bucs.
I mean, what do we need? 3 to cover, or we need 3 and 4?
We need 3 to cover in the Sportfolio. For everyone listening, already has made or lost the money.
Real quick, let's litigate this really quick, not waste any more time for people listening. If the Bucs do win by 3, does my playing Bucs at 3 count as a push, even though I kind of leaned at 4-2, or do we call it a loss and the streak's over?
I would say it's a push. Not a loss though, because you were very deliberate in saying if we want to put it in the Sportfolio, but it has to be at 3. And that's why we unfortunately, overpaid for it, even though you got 3 much earlier in the week, right?
Yeah. For not much cheaper.
Yeah. And we had to buy that point to get to it. So that's why this loss will hurt especially so. But if it pushes, or even possibly at this point in time, if 3 wins, 4 wins, because it's either going to win by 3 or a touchdown. Sometimes buying the points might save us, from a loss.
Yeah, well, we'll see.
And we've been really good and judicious about buying points. Not just this season, but last season. And again, that's something I want to take a closer look at in the off season. is what is the net added value of us buying points? Because we don't do it very often,
No, it's not always worth it. And sometimes we actually sell points to.
Yeah, exactly.
So
if it's Tyler Bray and the Bears Packers, it's in Green Bay. I mean, I don't think Green Bay will be shy to run the Bears out of the building if they can.
Yeah.
And 8 seems light. I think it was 8-ish. Maybe it was 5.5. No, I think I'm not sure. But I mean, there's been some big Bear spreads the last. I mean, I know it was 7 going into last year's week 1 when we bet the Bears. Or maybe it was two seasons ago now. First year with Khalil Mack.
Yeah, I remember that.
We bet the Bears plus a touchdown. But yeah, this is a weird position. If Trubisky does play,
yeah, that's a good point. And remember, Packers coming off that loss. This to me is if you want like money line of the year, which I hate saying, it's stupid. But I mean, Packers, unless Rodgers gets hurt or something weird happens, I don't see how Packers lose this game straight up. It's just with Rodgers, Bears defense would have to play amazing. It's just going to be a tough outing for Bears to go on the road to Lambeau against Rodgers and actually win this game. So,
it would have to be. Rodgers would have to get knocked out.
Yeah, or the Bears defense is just completely dominating the game.
But the Bears haven't last really for so long.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That defense hasn't really done that this year. So
they
dominate two quarters.
If Foles or Trubisky plays, the Bears plus 8 is possibly worthwhile because the Bears defense will probably play well for at least half this game, from energy,
keep
momentum.
It close enough. Yeah.
And with the Bears losing, the Vikings losing, Lions losing, the Bears still have 5 wins. So they're not out of it by any means.
Yeah.
You win this game, now you're one game back from the Packers.
Let's play devil's advocate real quick. Bears had the bye. Their offense cannot be any worse than it was last week. So it has to be better. It literally, they did not score a touchdown. So it cannot be any worse. So the question is, how much marginally better does it get in this game? 8.5 you might have to take. Shit.
Yeah. If you got Foles or Trubisky again. Nagy now is because I guess Foles is banged up, obviously Trubisky banged up. So let's move on. I guess this is the Seahawks Eagles was the last one.
Yeah.
I guess there's Dolphins Jets too. Just real quick, do you have something on Dolphins Jets?
No, I don't see a lineup on this.
Yeah, I don't see one on that either. I think Tua is probably going to start, so I don't know why that is out there. But Jets at home. If this is Jets a big touchdown or more, I probably like the Jets again.
Unless Fitzmagic is QB.
Oh yeah, no. If Fitzmagic is QB, then all bets are off. But I think it's going to be Tua.
Yeah, it should be Tua based on everything I read.
Mm-hmm.
Seahawks at Eagles. Seahawks -5.5 at the Eagles. Oh God, this is the week you're supposed to take the Eagles. Damn it.
Probably.
This was the week. Well, no, the reason I'm saying that.
I don't want to bet this game. I don't want to watch this game. I don't even want to know what happens in this game.
I'm not. Look, this is the thing. This was the week you were supposed to take the Eagles. In that, of the last 4 weeks.
Well, because it's at home, it's plus points.
Well, it's +5.5, and you're getting a Seahawks team that cannot win by margin. Coming off a big division win, this game is not meaningless, but it's basically meaningless for the Seahawks. Besides needing the win in general, but
no, you're right. This sets up much more nicely, but I'm butthurt.
Oh, damn it! It's Monday night.
I'm doubly butthurt on that. We cannot pick primetime games.
No, we've actually done much better this year than last year.
Oh, look, we're like somewhat 50% and not like
we're like
1 in
50.
7.
Yeah. Well, that's an improvement. Remember, there's little edge in primetime games because the market's sharper on those
tight.
games.
Yeah, so tight.
So
yeah, we just keep doing it. Doing it again tonight, baby.
Yeah, and it's not looking good.
All right, so I guess just real brief, Chiefs Bucks. Don't know what the line is going to be. Probably Chiefs -3. I'm going to think in Tampa.
Yeah.
Who would you bet?
I mean, Chiefs going across country. I mean, Chiefs are trying to price. I don't know if the Chiefs really want the 1 seed over Pitt. The game probably is going to mean more to the Bucks than the Chiefs. I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm not going to be betting the Bucs. I mean, the Bucs defense couldn't stop Jared Goff, so I don't.
Well, because first of all, I think they came in with the wrong game plan and they haven't adjusted. That's why. Because McVay has come in understanding that if Goff is going to have guys in his face, he's going to be blitzed over and over again. He's going to get smoked if he doesn't have super quick passes and a super quick offense. They came in with the right game plan. This is all coaching. This game, I don't think I necessarily downgrade the Bucs too much. I think this was just the Rams defense is better than we thought, and McVay came in with a great game plan. Understood Goff's weaknesses and adjusted accordingly, and the Bucs defense is not. Even we got the Goff 2 picks, and even still this game's teetering, you know. So even that Goff angle is not enough, and McVay has mitigated the downside of Goff just enough to make sure this game's going to be competitive. And I think we just didn't price that component properly.
Yeah, that's fair. Coaching matters. That's what I learned.
Matters. All righty, good stuff. Good pod. A relatively good week, either regardless of how this Bucs games plays out, where it either be 3-2 or 2-3, and 2-3 typically does not sound very good. But in a week when the market goes 0-5, 0-6, at 1-9 in the top 10, 2-3 doesn't sound so bad. And again, we were right a lot more than that this season or this week. We're too loaded a bit too heavy on Eagles and Pats. But I'm optimistic. Looking forward to next week. Confident. Everyone have a good holiday. Thanks for listening, and that's closing bell.